Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is the Right Honourable Mark Francois, MP. Mark entered Parliament in 2001 as the member for Rayleigh and Wickford. He's even brought some constituents with him. In gaining selection as the Conservative candidate for Rayleigh, Mark defeated another hopeful called Boris. Now, we've not heard much about Boris since then, quite honestly. But seriously, to defeat Boris in a selection process, you have to have better jokes than Boris. And I know Mark has. You also have to have a deep understanding of a Conservative audience and what conservatism is all about. And I know that Mark has that in spades. Since being elected, he's been an outstanding parliamentarian. He's used his experience in the Territorial Army and his MA in War Studies to great effect, serving for 6 years at the Ministry of Defence, including being Minister of State for the Armed Forces. More importantly for Mark, our relationship with the European Union has been his primary concern. He used his maiden speech in 2001 to condemn the Nice Treaty. He became an opposition spokesman on the European Union and oversaw the party's withdrawal from the federalist EPP group in the European Parliament. Then, as the Shadow Europe Minister, he led the party's opposition to the Lisbon Treaty. In the House of Commons, when the referendum came in 2016, he campaigned strenuously to leave and is now Deputy Chairman of the ERG group of Conservative MPs. But the most important thing about Mark is that he's one of 28 Conservative MPs who voted on every occasion against Theresa May's withdrawal agreement. Along with our friends in the DUP. Without Mark and his colleagues, we would now be living in a vassal state, accepting laws and regulations over which we have no say, and paying handsomely for that privilege. Many parliamentarians are held in contempt by the voters, but Mark and his colleagues are heroes. They are dedicated to serving the people of our great country and implementing the result of the referendum. Ladies and gentlemen, please show your appreciation of Mark Francois.
Mr. Chairman, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolute pleasure to be back here addressing the Bruges Group today, this time in this great city of Manchester. It's also a particular honour for me to have Sir John Redwood as my warm-up man. I stand before you as someone making what I believe is a reasonable request, but who has been excoriated in some sections of the media as a right-wing extremist as a result. Here is the shocking thing I crave. I want to live in a free country that elects its own government and makes its own laws and then lives in peace under them. Something Margaret Thatcher, our greatest ever peacetime Prime Minister, famously summarised as a free society under a rule of law. I ask you in all humility, what is extreme about that? My argument has apparently generated at least one admirer, although certainly not at The Guardian. Incidentally, if any of you do read The Guardian, I would advise you on health grounds to leave now. The other morning, and this is true, trust me, I'm a politician, my long-suffering PA, Adele, came into my office with my morning coffee, and with an absolute deadpan expression, she asked me, would you like the good news or the bad news? You choose, I said, with my heart in my mouth, to which she replied as follows. I've just played back the answer phone messages from last night, and there was a very nice sounding lady who wants you to know that she has seen you on the television again, passionately arguing for Brexit, and if you carry on like this, she may feel compelled to propose marriage. So, when I asked how she sounded, Adele replied that she sounded rather sweet. So what's the bad news, I inquired. To which she responded, I've traced the call. It comes from a care home in Cumbria, from a lady called Ethel. Cumbria. Well, Rory, if you're going to form a new party, that's one you've lost already. I was already wary of the growing power of the European Union over our everyday lives when, as the chairman has kindly indicated, I was first elected to the House of Commons back in 2001. And I have reminded Boris once or twice that I beat him for this election, so now you know why I'm not in the government. I made my maiden speech on the 4th of July 2001 against the ratification of the Treaty of Nice, again, by the way, without a referendum. However, what really convinced me we had to leave the EU was my time as the Shadow Europe Minister, when I spent 14 nights in the House of Commons debating the fine details and intricacies of the 300-page Lisbon Treaty. And as we proceeded, and I see John nodding, it became blindingly obvious that we couldn't change so much as a punctuation mark of that treaty, and that Parliament had been reduced to a mere rubber stamp for the decisions of others who we could neither elect nor remove. At the end of that process, I said to myself, this is bonkers. We've got to get out of this. We're no longer in charge of our own country. And from that point on, I resolved to fight for us to leave the European Union. I well remember at the time, Gordon Brown and his cohorts thought they'd been terribly clever in ramming the Lisbon Treaty through Parliament, again, without a referendum. But I do believe it was that action that finally began to shift public opinion in this country against the undemocratic growth of the EU superstate, which led to the rise of UKIP and then the eventual referendum in 2016. In other words, the Federalists, who thought they were being quite ingenious in 2008, in fact created the conditions by which we voted to leave their beloved European Union barely 8 years later. This, I believe, provides a lesson for our current situation. Indeed, The Sun this morning reports that Labour's own private polling estimates they will lose around 100 seats in the near-term general election. which, as John has indicated, they are now clearly absolutely desperate to avoid. Those politicians, Blair, that great seeker after truth himself, Mandelson, Grieve, Hammond, Philip, Heseltine, Ben, Cooper, and Swinson, who will never support leaving the EU under any circumstances whatsoever, need to understand that the more they conspire to keep us in the EU against the democratically expressed wishes of our own people, those who live in the real world outside of the North London bubble, the more frustrated and angry those people will become. So my personal message to those politicians is this. If you contrive to surrender, and it is a surrender, the destiny of your country to a foreign entity, then don't whinge when people see through you and become a little bit ticked off as a result. Now, it's not clear at present whether or not we will be able to achieve a deal with the European Union that can then be put to Parliament, in effect, as meaningful vote for. Even if this is the case, then after the events of last week, I'm unconvinced that 30 or so Labour MPs, under the threat of momentum and trigger ballots, are going to come riding over the hill to vote with the government. I think that's unlikely. For my part, I've already been asked multiple times by the media if I will vote for it or not, to which I have consistently replied, well, it rather depends what's in it. However, if there is a deal, as a so-called Spartan, if it means that we genuinely leave the European Union at Halloween, then I will be the first in the eye lobby. But if it really means we don't, I will be against it, and no amount of browbeating by anybody will make me change my mind. Fundamentally, MPs of all parties promised the people of this country that we would respect their decision made in the 2016 referendum. We are in our current predicament because for many MPs who are committed federalists, and always have been, the people had the temerity to give the wrong answer. We must now keep going until that promise is honoured, or our entire democracy and the faith of our people in it is in real danger. I have acquired, much to my surprise, something of a minor reputation for quoting poetry on these occasions, much to the dislike of certain Guardian journalists. The most appropriate words I could find for this scenario come from Robert Frost, who said in his poem Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, and I quote, "The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep." We as members of Parliament made a promise to the British people that if they voted to leave the European Union, we would honour their wishes. If we don't, how will they ever believe us in the future? In 1997, I fought Ken Livingstone as the Tory candidate in Brent East. I can exclusively reveal today that I had him worried. Just another 16,000 teensy-weensy little votes, and I would have defeated him. But at a hustings in Willesden Green, he said something I've never forgotten. He said, as an MP, remember he had been and I hadn't, a general election is an opportunity to commune with your 68,000 employers. I have 80,000 employers in Rayleigh and Wickford, but the principle is exactly the same. The people elect members of Parliament, not the other way around. And we forget that at our peril. To conclude, we are at a crossroads in our national destiny. We could bow the knee to the European Union and be told to vote again on a decision we have already taken until we come up with the right answer, as some other EU countries have previously done. Historically, those who have sought to bully us in these islands have never succeeded, and they will fail again now. Conversely, we can press on with the order given to us by the British people via the referendum to set our country free. The sovereignty of Parliament only derives from the consent of the electorate. This Parliament is now clearly past its sell-by date, and the whole country knows it. Too many MPs have forgotten this simple truth, which underlines our entire system. So politically, if they carry on as they are, they should ask not for whom the bell tolls, for it tolls for them.
To see our future videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon. That way you'll get a notification by email as soon as a new video is available. In the meantime, please do help us out and like and share or retweet this post so your friends and followers can see it too.